I have been in a long inquiry alongside other practitioners, other thinkers, other social actors, other organizers of trying to connect the dots between how we reorganize our material conditions, our political economy, with how we reorganize our own collective capacities, agencies to transform society. I feel like in my own trajectory in politicized somatics and what I'm sort of developing as embodied purpose, many of the themes, explorations, inquiries are very connected to what IDA has been trying to do with its transformative mental health core curriculum. So many of the themes in the curriculum are about investigating power and society and how that impacts and shapes what we call mental health. When we say transformative mental health, we're really talking about our collective agency in disrupting, inquiring about, kind of almost reshaping social configurations and political economic configurations to benefit our well-being. So I think there's something really important in how IDA sets this up and asks these questions, because there's no silver bullets here. And instead, what it is it's really like this inquiry of power, like it's a power analysis. And it is like a care assessment, like how are we actually setting up society according to our well-being. So I think that these are, they're very expansive questions about it, rather than the very narrow-minded kind of tendencies on the part of certain institutions, more long-standing institutions, to kind of locate mental health in this incredibly pathological, medicalized way. So I think there's something really kind of sophisticated about an inquiry that is about like really considering how things dynamically have come into being and how we are related to it. I'm excited that this curriculum exists because it gives us, as practitioners, as organizers, a way in which to connect the dots between how society operates and is changing, including in times of polycrisis, and how we are shaped by that and are changing ourselves, including in times of polycrisis, to connect those dots, and also primarily to consider ourselves like in a much more whole way, and in terms of our well-being and in terms of our agencies and capacities to also shape and reshape our relationships, generate and regenerate new forms of safety and dignity and belonging, and really kind of generate ultimately what we're hoping as new society. So the work of transformative mental health coexists with the work of reorganizing material conditions that cause the harm, much of the harm at least, in the first place. And I feel like this transformative mental health curriculum of IDA's really does create that opportunity to both connect the dots and see the interrelationship between things that oftentimes are held separate. There's different entry points based on various different types of activisms and movements around transformative mental health. So it's not just one way. And so I think it gives those of us who are practitioners an opportunity to actually understand what our work sits alongside, and explore even those tensions and contradictions, so that we can all be better, not just better informed, but and more edified, but really when things are so uncertain and are so adaptive, and when the knowledge that we've been given and the understanding we've been given is so suspect according to power dynamics, it gives us the opportunity to really wrangle with and explore alongside fellow practitioners, what are the sort of pitfalls as well as successes of certain approaches. And there's something to me that's very dialectical and non-deterministic about it, and like really like useful for practitioners, but also organizers who are increasingly considering exploring mental health because we have to reorganize the material conditions that cause so much harm and trauma in the first place. But at the same time, we also have to heal as we're doing that. And so that complicated contradiction of how we have to organize ourselves to change society, to transform ourselves and transform society, that's something that IDA's curriculum actually also allows for. I feel like it really is a vibrant hub for negotiating some of those things. The lessons that I taught in the curriculum were about politicized somatics and embodied transformation, and the core concepts that underlie that methodology, which is a very practice-based methodology. So as much as we're talking about concepts, they're really concepts we put into practice, because embodied transformation at its core is about the body being reclaimed as part of the self. That like we in a sort of Eurocentric shaping or capitalist shaping can be in a very much of a mind-body split. It gets reinforced over time in our individual selves, but in our culture as well, and in how society reproduces itself. So we just kind of want to consider those things. So the core concepts are like the body is part of the self is inherently relational. We are, already constituted by relationship, even as individuals. It's almost like there's no such thing as an individual. And we want to reclaim that too, that even if we're alone and separated, we're still populated. So the body is part of the self is relational. We are shaped by society, by social forces, by community, as well as by our sort of like intimate family networks. And we also have the agency and capacity to shape everything back individually and collectively, especially collectively. The hope there is that that is a more dynamic way of really like considering how change happens, how transformation happens for individuals, collectives, and society itself. And I think that's an important contribution to a transformative mental health lens, because I don't think we can individually liberate ourselves. We don't even heal alone. So the contribution there is really connecting whatever it is we consider mental health to whatever it is we consider society and how it changes too. So for us to transform, we do need to transform society. And for society to transform, we do need to transform ourselves. And those things are in constant contradiction. Those are all, that's just hard to fight and heal at the same time. But that consideration feels like it's an important contribution to this curriculum. I think the importance of situating politicized somatics as a framework and as a sort of practice-based methodology within this global polycrisis that we live in today is to ground ourselves in the possibility of making some choices about how we want to move forward. So it's the opportunity for us to collectively center in the kind of whirlwind of contradictions that are surrounding us, whether it's the rise of authoritarianism or the collapse of climate and the sort of flailing of empire. What I think a politicized somatics framework can do is to start to help us sort and organize without pathologizing and without over determining, really not just understanding, but practicing the awareness of their impact on our bodies and our capacities, and to do that in a compassionate way, not just individually, but collectively. It gives us an opportunity to calibrate and then to create some priorities and choose, so that like, we're pacing ourselves in a way that allows for us to actually generate possibility even as we are organizing. So healing and being sensitive to a range of capacities and abilities is really crucial to what it means and what it's going to take to reorganize conditions. None of us have this figured out, and it's a very complicated task. And and I think we historically have been fighting, and healing has been its own contradiction. Like you can be either one or the other. But I think there's something about us being both in a calibrated way, when we have the capacity to be both, that feels really important, or at least to honor that that relationship needs to exist, even if some of us tend towards one or another. And I think that, like, how we operate in the whirlwind and how we treat each other in the whirlwind and how we take care of each other in the whirlwind as we move together and as we try to change things, it feels like an really important framework. So I think the politicized somatics framework does attempt, at least in its evolution right now, it does attempt to really consider those various forces that are in contradiction and really try to reclaim our bodies as part of that, sort of hidden cost and hidden capacity of how we change the world.